What's going on, everyone? And welcome into Expected Bets for your go-to podcast for all things hockey betting. I'm joined today, as always, by my two co-hosts, Betsky. I think you got the Utah shirt on. Am I
do,
seeing that
yeah.
correctly? There it is.
Yeah, they look sharp.
Nice.
I'm not gonna lie.
I like it.
I know I'm biased here, but I'm also a little unbiased since it's not the same team, but it is. But when you put the whole kit together, it looks really clean, I think. And again, this is first iteration. I'm expecting it to look very different next year. So
they kind of copied.
I imagine these will become the thirds, right?
Yeah, the
Probably,
black ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
The waves look really good too. I don't think we've seen it on ice yet, but the mock-ups, I'm excited to see what that looks like. But
yeah, I like how they went with the hockey club too, instead of the Yetis, or there was a few.
That's just for this year.
For this year.
Yeah.
I kind of like it.
I don't mind it, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be Yeti.
Yeah, it's true. Franco, how are we doing out there in Philly?
Doing good. Excited tonight. My man Mishkov is going to be hitting the ice in a like a rookie game tonight. So there's like a huge line outside the practice facility yesterday. They had an open skate to the public, and everybody was out there. I wish I went, to be honest with you. I kind of blew that one, but very excited, man. It's time to be excited in Philly for once. So.
Did you see the clip of him yesterday?
Well, where he tried the Michigan.
He tried the Michigan, yeah, and then the tweet was all the coaches just looked at Torts and started laughing.
That's so perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, so let's get into their team breakdown. All right, getting into the Columbus Blue Jackets, some unfortunate news this offseason. I think we have to start here with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother. Just an absolute tragic incident that happened during this offseason. You just heard all the stories that the former players and his teammates and kind of his family said about him. It just kind of proved how great his impact was, not only on the ice, but off the ice. Betsky, I'll throw it to you. When the news first came out, it was, I think on Eastern time, it was 1 or 2 in the morning, and you kind of heard rumblings and you're like, this can't be real. And then you see in the morning it comes out. What was your kind of first reaction to the news?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt sick to my stomach when I read it. It was one of those weird things because, I mean, obviously athletes will pass away, and sometimes it's obviously rare when they're actually active. So that was a hardship on top of it. But I mean, this was a player that's always brought a ton of amazing memories. I got to see him play his rookie season on the Flames with Monahan, and just was kind of won over. I kind of secretly liked the Flames during some of those periods. And he just really seemed like a guy that you could relate to, even though he was a superstar. And I don't know, he just seemed like such a kind person and one of the easiest players across the entire league to root for. So it obviously was a huge, huge loss for the entire hockey community and the NHL and fans.
Yeah. When he kind of came onto the scene at Boston College, him and his brother were a package deal, which I think kind of, you heard those stories coming out to be winning the Hobie Baker, and then getting drafted is kind of this underdog story too. We looked before, there wasn't a ton of undersized forwards that, he probably, I mean, looking back, he probably should have went much sooner than he did in the draft, for sure. And now he kind of paved the way, especially for these smaller forwards to kind of get a chance and prove that they can play in the NHL. Franco, I'll throw it to you. And any thoughts on kind of just the passing of Johnny Gaudreau?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. He's a local kid from kind of not too far from where I actually live. He skated at the rink right down the road from me. My people I know said that their kids have played at that rink, and like they interacted with his dad and stuff like that. And like, so he's very much been a, South Jersey guy, and heard a lot of stories about him coming back a lot and skating with kids in the area and like trying to grow the game in this area. And it's just huge to think about. Like, it gives that belief for any kid that's, growing up in a town that's not along the Canadian border or in a, frozen area, that they can play hockey too. And I know Philly and South Jersey isn't like super far from Canada, but still, I mean, it's not like a hockey hub here either, you know? So seeing that and thinking any kid that this undersized can make it to the NHL and be a superstar, it's just awesome. And what he did for the game in this area especially is just, it's just a shame, man, that to see him go so young and in that way, it's not fair.
Yeah.
No, I agree. His impact on the hockey community will live on. So again, extending our deepest condolences to his friends and family out there. Betsky, we do have to talk about this team kind of outside Johnny Gaudreau moving forward here. You mentioned Sean Monahan. He's one of their new additions, in addition to Jordan Harris, Jack Johnson. Monahan, obviously, I think Johnny Gaudreau was probably one of the reasons why he ended up here. To reunite in Calgary. So now Monahan's going to be that first line center alongside Boone Jenner and Marchenko here. This roster has a ton of young talent with Fantilli, Johnston, Chinnikov, just to name a few of those guys. Yeah. You know, you can look at their whole roster here. So let's start with this, the addition of Monahan and then kind of going into their young core. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like they were taking another step in the right direction to shore up responsible players because of so many younger, high-skilled guys on the roster. You know, Fantilli arguably could have been the second overall pick in the Bedard draft. A lot of people thought he was going to go in that position until the Ducks took Leo Carlson. So, Columbus must have been thrilled to have Fantilli drop to them. Tons of high expectations there too. We didn't get to see him play a full season due to injury, but he was kind of improving every game. I think, the projected lines that we're seeing already on Daily Faceoff, I have a feeling could be totally different by the time the season rolls and training camp happens, because they had so many pieces missing over the last two seasons. I mean, Werenski was out pretty much the entire season 2 years ago. Patrick Laine was out pretty much all of last season. Now he's on Montreal, obviously, as well. So I don't know how many of these forwards or defensemen really have any sort of chemistry with each other. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting team to watch and see how they develop, see how they battle for each other after all the tragedy this summer, and see if they can kind of take on a us versus the world and doing this for Johnny type mentality. It's interesting. I don't have high expectations for them, obviously, but these are the types of teams that can be really good on a betting standpoint because they're going to be extremely overlooked by books. All of these kids have shots to be in the top 6 right now on the top power play. And a lot of their point props, shot props, everything are going to probably be very, very mislisted, especially initially. So this is a team to circle, kind of keep your eye on. I think just the way the team is structured, there's going to be a lot of forwards that can kind of have that running gun approach. I mean, we saw Marchenko kind of starting to blow up near the end of the season. Chinnikov was starting to become a nice shots on goal guy.
Yep.
Kent Johnston was finally starting to look a lot more comfortable. And then you have defenseman David Jurasek, who I was loving him his draft year. And this will be his second season, his first full season. You got some exciting pieces here. It kind of reminds me of Anaheim, Utah a couple years ago. And maybe they're going to have that ability to at least be a good point prop, shot prop type team to bet on, even though I suspect that it's going to be a hard season in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, we've criticized some teams in the past too, and kind of letting that talent and prospect pool pipeline kind of get clogged up, where they bring one or two guys in onto that third or fourth line that don't give them kind of the full chance. Columbus here is just fully embracing their young core and saying, you know what, there's really nothing else to lose here. Might as well let them play, gain experience, and kind of see what we have here, right? Because they are still so young. And they've maybe had a year or two to develop chemistry, if that. So it should be an exciting team. You also mentioned the departure of Patrick Laine. Franco, this team feels like it's been kind of injury ridden. Werenski is kind of feels like he's hurt every year or every other year at this point too. Fantilli goes out last year, like they said. Line into the players' assistance program. What are your kind of thoughts? Let's start with there, just kind of on the departure of Line, and then kind of going in to kind of their projected D line setup with Werenski, Provorov, and Juracek.
Yeah, I think they've kind of been used to not having Line and Tessier as well. I feel like barely played the last few seasons. So those two almost, I mean, I don't want to say it's like not a loss that's going to affect them, but they've already been kind of playing without them. So
Yeah,
I think they reached the point with Line where it's probably best for both sides to just move on. Like, you know, you hate to lose a player with his talent and skill set, especially with the loss of Johnny on top of it. Like, I wonder if, you know, you can't, you know, go back in time, but would they have maybe tried to extend Line, you know, if they had the chance? The other pieces, I mean, Alex Nylander kind of finally found something at a point last year. I don't know. I don't know if we're supposed to expect that to be real or not. I know we were hammering his shots on goal prop for a bunch of games in a row where he was just on absolute fire, and then he kind of fell off a cliff. But so yeah, I mean, the losses don't feel like that significant. You know, you're adding Monahan, who's a veteran. You're adding Jordan Harris from the Habs, who is relatively young still, and I think he's a decent defenseman. I don't think he's bad by any means. So the blue line gets a little bit better there. I think the biggest question would be Werenski. Can he stay healthy this year? Because it, like you said, it feels like he missed that one whole year, and I feel like he missed a bunch of games last year. I might be wrong there, but felt like he missed some games last year as well. Severson has that long contract. You hope that kind of works out for them a little bit. He can kind of return to his shutdown side that he showed in New Jersey. So yeah, and Jiracek, I mean, I felt like they kind of, I don't know if it's mishandled that situation last year, but I know there's the press that came out with him where he said he should have been there and he didn't feel like he should have been sent back, and kind of was pushing back a little bit. So I'm kind of excited to see what he's going to bring this year, because you got to imagine that he's going to be kind of wanting to show something, right? Like wanting to prove that he belongs here and is a part of this team. So yeah, I kind of like the blue line. It's not as bad as we've seen in the last few years from them, and like you said, it's all about the youth movement with this team. You got to kind of move forward and embrace it. Let these guys learn from their mistakes and figure it out in real game action. It's time to show it.
yeah. I mean, this defensive unit hasn't been great in years past too. And you could say in partial, it's kind of the goaltenders haven't helped out, or the defense hasn't helped out the goaltenders. You can kind of really swing this in either way. Verzlikins and Tarasov are the two goaltenders for Columbus right now. Verzlikins had some issues during the season of requesting a trade, kind of wanting to be that number one guy, and just hasn't really proven it here. Betsky, what are your thoughts on this goaltender room? It looks extremely weak.
Yeah, I agree. Scary bad, to be honest, and it kind of stinks because, you know, you're trying to bring up some kids and try to build up some confidence, but I don't think this is going to help a guy like Juracek or any of the forwards that are on the younger side, because this is going to be probably an uphill battle unless some magic can happen, really. But I mean, on paper, that blue line doesn't look too bad, to be honest. So maybe if they can play a conservative enough system, I don't know what type of system Dean is going to plan on bringing here. It's really, to me, a team that's just kind of in transition and kind of okay with the fate that is probably going to be dealt with to them this year, to continue to stockpile a little bit more. So I'm sure the goaltending isn't the biggest number one concern for them. And that means that this could lean for many games going on the over, or taking the other team's team total or puck line against Columbus. So that's kind of how I feel the goaltending looks on paper.
Yeah. I was just about to say it. This feels like an over team. big time. Kind of even looking at, we talked about Montreal a few episodes ago as well as being kind of leaning towards the over here. Franco, did you have kind of anything else to add on the team structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to consider here is that there is going to be some cap space now with what happened, and Waddell moves in here as the GM. He came over from Carolina. I know he obviously built a very nice franchise over there, turned that team around. So there's a reason for optimism here. I feel like, at least maybe not this year, but looking forward, you have some space now. Is it crazy to think that if this team is on the fringe of a wild card spot, that they could add somebody at the deadline, or even maybe pre-deadline, kind of like we've seen in the past, where a guy gets traded maybe a few weeks before we're even talking about the trade deadline, like one of those, a big contract that maybe a team hasn't been able to get rid of or hasn't been able to ship away, veteran type of guy. You add him to this team, I mean, maybe that helps this team a lot. You get a nice veteran presence. This team rallies around the news and plays above their talent level. And yeah, I think there could be some upside here. And we have seen skill from Merzlikins in the past, right? He got a big contract a few years ago because of it. We don't really know what to expect here. And we always say that the goalies year to year, it's like you never know. So who knows, man? I mean, maybe there could be some magic here. It would be pretty fun to watch, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole hockey community is kind of rooting for that Cinderella run from the Columbus Blue Jackets if it does happen. All right, before we get into the best and worst case scenario for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode of Expected Bets 4 is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever stopped to think about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, we don't always make the time to learn we used to when we were kids. Kids are constantly exploring and growing, but somewhere along the way, life gets busy and we lose some of that curiosity. What's something you've been wanting to dive into? Maybe it's cooking, picking up a new language, or even figure out your golf game to finally beat your new friend. Just because we're older doesn't mean we have to stop growing. In fact, therapy can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder. It reminds you that your back-to-school moment can happen at any time. Therapy is not just for people who have gone through something major. It's for anyone looking to be the best version of themselves. Therapy can help you learn positive ways to cope with stress, set healthy boundaries, and tackle challenges with more confidence. It's really about giving yourself the tools to thrive and grow, no matter what stage of life you're in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Now back to the show. Now getting into the best and worst case scenario for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Betsky, I know we just kind of brought this up, but it feels like the best case scenario is just a Cinderella run for this team, obviously, but looking at a kind of a realistic best case scenario for this team, I think it starts with their young core continuing to develop and kind of showing signs of chemistry and being able to kind of handle the full season workload.
Yeah, I think you want a group that maybe goes on some big runs and has some big winning streaks, but ultimately you're losing more games than winning and potentially having another top 5 pick to add to this prospect pool. But I think the most important thing here is watching guys like Fantilli and Urasek take that next step as some of the youngest guys on the roster and really starting to look like true NHL difference makers. And then I think you want to see guys like Kent Johnson and Marchenko really taking that step towards being more established top 6 guys. So if you're getting Fantilli and Urasek to look kind of like what Kent Johnson and Marchenko started looking like last season, and then those two taking another step to where you can start to write down who are part of the core and maybe who are not going to be part of the core moving forward, and really defining what this team is going to look like in the direction you want to take it. I think Columbus fans would be happy with that, even if it's kind of a bottom 5 situation. Obviously, them surprising the world and making the playoffs or even be knocking on the door would be a fabulous story. But realistically, I think what you're really hoping for is to see a lot of the youth take another step up and establish themselves in the NHL.
Yeah, and I think Dean Evanson too, just kind of building an identity for
Yeah.
this team moving forward. I think that is kind of what Columbus fans are hoping for, to finally have the head coach come in and kind of right the ship, not even right the ship, but just stabilize this
Yeah.
franchise, because they have gone through so much turmoil on the ice and even off the ice, as we mentioned too. So just someone that kind of writes the helm for the franchise would be great. Franco, worst case scenario. Um, I think we just kind of, it's the exact opposite of what we just talked about. This young core kind of doesn't improve. They don't really show signs of life at all in terms of just like offensive production. Werenski gets hurt again. Fantilli isn't the guy who they thought he was, and Berzlikins and Tarasov both struggle.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the main thing you want to see here is development. And if we don't see development, if Fantilli doesn't have, I mean, we're talking about a top 3 pick here, right? Like, you want this guy to show something this year. I know last year was injury shortened, so you hope to see steps. You hope to see him start to shoot more, start to drive the play more. Yeah, if we don't see that, you see guys take a step back, like Kent Johnson and Sillinger. You're expecting these guys to finally start to be full-time real NHLers, and if that's what we see, that feels like the worst case scenario for me. Like, I think at some point you are probably gonna move on from Merzlikins, so like I'm not like hoping he takes a step forward. It's more the youth I want to see, and honestly, it feels like no matter how bad this season is, when all said and done, point wise, record wise, I don't think anybody's going to blame this team or anything like that. Like, I think that's the most important thing to think about here is just the future of these players and what they can build going forward, and not really focusing on what the outcome is on in this particular season for them.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Before we get into some team and player futures, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, DraftKings. NFL Week 1 is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. The NFL season kicks off on Thursday night with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs are currently favored by 3, with the total being set at 46.5. If you're looking to place your bet on Week 1 NFL action, head over to DraftKings. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the best place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you just bet $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Only at DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Getting into some team and player futures for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have a current regular season points total at 67.5. Last year they had 66. Currently plus 1,700 to make the playoffs, minus 5,000 to not. Pretty much the largest gap that's in the NHL right now. I think they have the lowest point total, maybe outside of San Jose, I want to say, but certainly no real expectations from the odds makers in terms of making the playoffs this season. Betsky, I'll start with you. I think the only kind of reasonable prop on this board is their regular season points total that we kind of look at. So are you leaning over, under on this, or is this kind of a stay away for you?
I mean, unfortunately, I'd have to say I would lean under on this, but
Yeah.
this is a decent division. It's not quite as good as the Atlantic, but they are going to play the Atlantic a good amount too. And I don't know. Obviously, maybe there's a world where they do rally around everything and push. But I just I have a hard time wanting to take the over here.
Yeah. No, I would agree, certainly. Yeah, this, like with everything that's happened, I'm sure hockey's not on their kind of top of their mind right now in terms of priority list. So Franco, did you have any thoughts on kind of this regular season points total?
Yeah, I mean, I can't feel good about going either way. I mean, I'd rather just sit on the sidelines and, and hope to root for these guys to take a step and
Yeah,
maybe have a fun run to finish the season off or something like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I can't take any sides here.
yeah, yeah. Looking at some player point futures, the only one listed on DraftKings right now is Boone Jenner at 44.5 minus 115. Either way, last year he had 35 points through 58 games. Betsky, I'll throw it back to you here. And are you biting on Boone Jenner?
I don't think I can.
Yeah,
Again, I mentioned at the beginning, even though the lines are on daily face-off, it's still just a projection, and we have no idea where these guys are going to sit. Bringing in Monahan means Jenner's not playing top center anymore. Does that mean he's not going to be on the top line? Maybe.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I kind of want to see Johnston and Monahan fly together and see if they can kind of create something that was similar to Johnny and Monahan and Calgary. I mean, that Ken Johnson has a lot of elements to Goudreau and has brought up that he was one of the players he looked up to as a kid. And
yeah,
there's a great clip online of Goudreau freaking out when Kent made a Michigan, I believe, from last season, and he's just dying laughing on the bench. And that I think there's a good chance that Jenner kind of finds his way on a line where he needs to shelter guys a little bit more, and Monahan doesn't seem to need sheltering. So if anything, maybe take the under on his points, but it's low enough that if he does end up being on the top power play or play on the top line, or maybe he finds chemistry with Fantilli and someone else on a different line, yeah, it seems dicey.
yeah, yeah. The top six and even the top nine, you could say, is just kind of we have no real indication that that's solidified by any means, and we've
Yeah.
kind of seen them shuffle lines pretty regularly, especially last year,
And
as guys go up and down the lineup.
there's a chance this is a very fun team to watch that can put up goals and kind of gives me pause on that.
Yeah, by all means. Franco Marchenko is listed at over 24.5 goals. It's the only other player prop available for the Blue Jackets. He had 23 last season. Did you have any thoughts on his goal total or even Boone Jenner's point total?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay off Boone. I wouldn't mind maybe taking a shot on Marchenko goals just because that number feels pretty decent. But again, I want to see the lines first. I really want to see how they come out of camp, and this could be a team that's constantly in the blender, and it's not going to be fun if you're holding that ticket with him over 24.5 and he's playing on the first line one week and then he's down on the third a couple weeks later, so ice time's king when you're betting these types of props, and you don't want to be putting your money on something like that when a guy could be just playing bottom 6 minutes. So I'll probably stay away when it's all said and done.
And honestly, you could probably just take his goal on the first game of the season for plus 120 or more, and
Yep.
if it hits, you're like doing the same thing as taking it season long, and you got the value out one game.
Yeah, I think in general, like you said, Betsy, earlier, I like game to game, this team could be pretty fun to bet on because I think you're going to get a ton of value. So you check the lines before the game or in pregame warmups or whatever and see who's skating on the top line, or what line's effective right now, what line's running hot, and you take those guys. Because I think even if a player is running hot on this team, there's still going to be like a plus 180 to plus 250 type of goal score prop, So much rather find value there than taking a minus 115 season long prop on a point total or goal total.
Yeah, no, I would certainly agree. It's going to be interesting to see kind of who ends up as Monahan's line mates in there, who kind of develops that chemistry. Because you feel like as soon as they do, they're almost going to be solidified on that top line.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Looking at the trophies, I don't think anyone's going to take either of these. Werenski 150 to 1 to win the Norris, and Merzlikins 150 to 1 to win the Vesna. I think those are both stayaways from everyone here. Strong advised stayaways from everyone here. All right, wrapping up the Columbus Blue Jackets. Franco, I'm going to throw it to you. Any last thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I think we pretty much got there. Shame what happened, obviously, with Johnny, and hopefully his team can rally around him. These guys, young guys, take a step forward, and they're a fun team to watch this year. Maybe we get that Cinderella run. I don't think anybody will be rooting against them if that does happen. It doesn't matter if they're playing against your team or what. Like, it's going to be fun to watch if that does happen, and I'm rooting for it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Betsky, anything else to add?
Yeah, no, ditto. I am here to see them just kind of beat down on guys occasionally and have some fun games and playing their hearts out for Johnny, and that'll be fun to watch, even if the win total is not the best.
Yeah, you really hope this young core kind of takes that next step forward too, to kind of give some hope for these Columbus fans moving forward with this roster. All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of Expected Bets 4. Be sure to check out all of our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure to do so. We also want to thank our wonderful sponsors, BetterHelp and DraftKings. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.